We begin today with a first-of-its-kind gathering that took place in South Carolina over the weekend. One many there likely hoped they would never have to go to. People like Debbie Smith. Debbie lost her 21-year-old son in a fraternity hazing incident, and now she is working with other parents to make sure this never happens to another family. Here's Debbie's story.
We've been crying for the last 3 days.
A gathering of friends who had never met in person.
Hi, Ruth. It's very nice to meet you. Nice to meet you.
Coming together to grieve and to try to save lives. These are parents united by one unthinkable bond. They have all lost a child to hazing rituals on college campuses, and they have banded together to put an end once and for all to these initiation rituals. Most of these parents lost a child in a fraternity hazing incident, one to an initiation into a marching band.
No one knows your pain like another parent that's lost a child.
They named their group PUSH, Parents United to Stop Hazing. And their plan is to strengthen hazing laws, increase transparency in Greek life and other college organizations, and educate young people about the dangers of hazing.
You don't know the law.
This is Debbie Smith. In February of 2005, she received a call she says no parent should ever get. Smith says she was told her son, 21-year-old Matthew Carrington, was injured during an incident at California State University in Chico. On the way to the hospital, she was told Matt, her son, who she called the light of her life, had died. Prosecutors say Matt had been in the Chi Tau fraternity's basement, forced to drink gallon after gallon of water with cold air being blown on him. He collapsed. By the time paramedics were called, it was too late. Matt's heart stopped at the hospital. Doctors say he died from water intoxication. This happened during Chi Tau's Hell Week, an initiation into the fraternity. Hazing is illegal in California. Several fraternity brothers were deemed responsible for having played a role in Matt's death.
My baby is gone. What do we do without her?
4 pleaded guilty to charges, and their sentences ranged from 90 days to 1 year in prison. Debbie Smith also requested that they each be ordered to take part in an anti-hazing outreach program.
Something is not right.
Now, that anti-hazing message drives Smith to unite with others and speak out, so no other parents get that dreaded call and are left with only memories of their children.
All he wanted to do was have friends. And his friends killed him.
Somebody famously said, if these were airplane crashes, somebody would do something about it. Well, you're looking at a small airplane crash right here.
Sadly, since Matthew's death, there have been more than 40 other deaths allegedly caused by hazing rituals. And now, an unlikely ally has united with Smith to help spread her message. Joining us now are Debbie Smith and that unlikely ally, one of the men responsible for her son's death, Jerry Lim. Welcome to you both.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having us.
This is an extraordinary conference meant to help others.
Yes.
And to do it, you have to go through your own pain, so good for you and good for you for helping. Let's just talk about Matt and the hazing ritual that he went through. How long did that whole experience go for?
Well, the hazing actually went on for quite some time, but the last 3 nights were the Hell Week, where he was tortured and humiliated and eventually killed on the 3rd night.
It is so unusual to see criminal charges brought and actually successfully brought.
Yes.
After a hazing incident. What do you think was different in Matt's case?
I think persistence was one of it. I think the fact that the young men involved actually really liked Matt, and not just that, but they felt guilty, and I think being afraid to possibly, even though the way the law was written at the time, there was a good chance they could have gotten off, but our DA was amazing and our judge was amazing, and that's what we need to have in place. Whether you have a law or not, you've got to have those that are going to back you up and want to make a difference and not just want the slap on the wrist and the boys will be boys.
Jerry, can you talk about the mentality that goes into hazing? Why people haze?
It's really tough to say what every single fraternity is thinking, but it really kind of goes along the lines of that you earn something and that there's a tradition involved. So there was a theme that was pushed a lot of times over and over and over while we were going through the fraternity that if you just are given this membership into this little friendship and house, you don't really value it. But if you have to go through something, if you have to really like get pushed to the limits, it creates value for you. And then through those tough times, it kind of builds the friendships through hardship. And so,
did you know that Matt was suffering? I mean, is there a consciousness about it in the moment?
It's really tough because at the time, everything that they go through, you had gone through yourself. And so you know it's tough and you know that it stinks, but you also know that it was, you sympathize, but at the same time you say, oh, I went through it as well. So it can't be that bad. You know, I survived it, I did fine.
It's this thing, Debbie, where as the one father said, all he wanted was friendship, you know, and that's the crazy thing about hazing. And I know you make this distinction between hazing and bullying.
Yes.
And can you point out the difference?
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons that hazing kind of gets swept under the rug, because the first thing people think of is bullying. And they automatically think hazing is bullying. And the difference between hazing and bullying is that you bully the people you don't like and you haze the people you do. And bullying is just about somebody picking someone out of a crowd for whatever reason and treating them horribly.
And you know you're in danger when you're on the receiving end of a bully.
Yeah, but with hazing, it's a ritual that is set in place. It's choreographed. There's a beginning, a middle, and end, and there's a purpose. There's no purpose in bullying. It's just mean and hateful.
But they're your friends. Friends, in quotes. You know, you believe they're not out to hurt you, actively hurt you.
Yes.
And yet there's a recklessness with hazing that it may not be intentional, but it can be deadly. I'm sure our audience is out there right now taking in this extraordinary sight, wondering how you and Jerry are sitting next to each other on the same stage.
I appreciate him so much because it was really important to me, first off, that there had to be time served, there had to be accountability, and it had to be accountability that people actually saw, not 30 days picking up garbage, getting a slap on the wrist, and a $100 fine. It had to be something substantial that people took notice and said, oh my gosh, you know, this is serious enough to go to jail. But that wasn't really enough. Enough had to be, you need to make a difference. You need to go out there and tell your story and help participate. They only had to do it while they were in jail and during probation, but he stuck with it, and I really appreciate that because he's got an amazing story. It changed his life forever.
And that's exactly where we're going to pick it up when we come back right after this break. We're back now with Debbie Smith, whose son Matt died in a hazing-related incident at California State University, Chico, in 2005. Also joining us, Jerry Lim, who was one of the fraternity brothers charged in connection with Matt's death. Incredibly, Debbie and Jerry have joined forces to raise awareness about the dangers of hazing. And let me start with you on that piece of it, Jerry. So you went to jail.
Yes.
For how long?
I was sentenced to 6 months.
Then the charge was?
Accessory to a felony and hazing.
And you said at first it was tough for you to accept responsibility. What was that mindset?
Well, it's really tough to take it in and feel responsible for a death. I mean, in an accident, you don't feel that responsible. With hazing, you're part of a whole system. It happened to you, and then it happened to the people before you. It could have been going on for 20 years, and it's always the same rituals, and it's always the same thing. And so when something terrible happens, there was no intent there to hurt anybody. And so it's hard to feel any personal responsibility at first. And, you know, it takes years of really letting it sink in and really like thinking about what the part that you played before you start to understand that what you did was pretty messed up. And
what responsibility do you take now? What did you do that you should not have?
I should have done things differently. I mean, the personal part, the personal role that I played was that I was in charge. I wasn't there at the time that everything had happened, but that night I should have stayed up and made sure that things ran more smoothly.
You were the pledge master?
Not pledge master, there was a different role. During that week, the people that had pledged the semester before were kind of put in charge, which is kind of a crazy way to work that system, but I was in charge of just that week.
Okay. I know you have 2 daughters now of your own.
I do.
Do they know?
No, they're far too young right now.
So one day, you'll have to tell them.
Yes.
How do you live with that? How do you think about that?
It's just part of the parenting process. I mean, there's a lot of things that I'm gonna have to explain to them when they get older, and that's just gonna be one of them, you know?
Mm-hmm. You know, it would be very hard for a lot of parents to forgive, Debbie. Have you forgiven Jerry and the other young men?
Yeah. You know, I came to terms, in the beginning, there's so much that goes on, but I actually met these young men at Matt's vigil. And at that point in time, I didn't know what had happened. I thought it was an accident. And I liked them. They seemed, you know, genuinely broken about what had happened to Matt. They told incredible stories about Matt. And so instinctively, as a mother, I felt sorry for them, you know, being with somebody. You know, the whole thing was he was working out in the basement, and then he somehow died. And that was kind of the story that I was getting. But then I found out what happened a month later, and I was mortified and angry, and I thought, oh my God, you killed my son. So I had to go through that process of like, okay, you need to go to jail and you need this. And by September, moving into October, I was learning so much, and I thought, okay, they did these things, and they were horrible things, but they were things that had done to them, and I'm trying to formulate, like, they didn't intend to kill him. So I kept going back to that. Their intent was not to kill him. Right. Their intent was to humiliate him, to torture him, to break him down, but the intent wasn't to kill him. So I can't hate them for being ignorant. And the hardest part was the not calling to get help when they could have. Yeah. 3 times.
Which we've seen in so many of these cases. That was the hardest. They don't call. When they see it's gone south, they don't call to get help. Yeah. They're afraid. And yet things get so much worse when somebody who is injured dies. Yeah. It gets so much worse for everyone involved, including the perpetrators. What needs to happen? Because this is not a new problem. No. And yet, I went to college in 88 through 92. This was happening. Yep. Here we are all these years later. It doesn't seem like anything has changed.
Well, what has changed is that it's coming to the light. You're seeing that 4 kids died this year, or 2017. We lost 9 in 2012. We lost 9 kids in 2012, and nobody talks about it. But now, all of a sudden, you know, because we're out there, I have the AHA movement, anti-hazing awareness. It's about education. So we're educating our kids. We're giving everybody a voice. At a young age. At a young age.
Explain why that's important.
It's important because they don't recognize what hazing looks like. Everybody associates it with bullying, and so when they're being hazed, they don't realize they're being hazed. So if you can help them see what it looks like, because as soon as you go in and you share what it looks like from the beginning, the light goes on, and they're like, oh my gosh, I didn't know I was being hazed.
This is the thing. This is the thing I've been warned about, hazing. Yes. But what about those kids, Jerry, who they know they're being hazed, they willingly get hazed because they think it's a badge of manhood or courage or something like that. They want to prove how tough they are to get into the fraternity. I mean, what to those young men who are doing the hazing still and who are willingly going into it knowing what it is, what do you want to say?
That you're buying a lottery ticket, and if you happen to be the winner, your whole world falls apart. The truth is that events like this are kind of unlikely, but who takes that chance that everything, I mean, you lose everything. Debbie's life was completely thrown apart. My life, which, you know, it's a small thing, but it really messed up a lot of people's lives, and for what? I mean, what did we really gain for that?
Right, in the name of friendship. I know you're now working to become a lawyer, right?
Yes.
And waiting on admission to the bar, which is always dicey when you have been to prison, but good for you for working to turn around your life and help others. Debbie, much love to you and your family.
Thank you.
Hello, Today fans. Thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking that button down there and click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives.